Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Kelleher. I'm an attorney with the Siting Division of the Energy Facility Siting Board. The Siting Division is the support staff to the Siting Board, and the Siting Board is charged with reviewing the location of large energy projects in Massachusetts. Welcome to this evening's hybrid public comment hearing regarding a project proposed by Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant, HMLP, and Eversource Energy, Eversource. This proposed project is docketed with the Siting Board as EFSB 24-01/DPU 24/-135. I am joined this evening to my right by Andrew Green, the director of the Siting Board, by Joan Foster Evans to my left, general counsel of the Siting Division. All the way to my right, Wayne Wang, assistant director of the Siting Division. Donna Sharkey is joining us online. She's another attorney with the Siting Division and a co-presiding officer in this matter. And Caleb Chang, energy analyst, the one other person up here at the table. Also joining us tonight is Commissioner Fraser on? Yes. There she is, yes. Commissioner Cecile Fraser, DPU Commissioner, is joining us remotely, as you can see on the screen. My colleagues and I are here this evening to listen to comments and questions from you, and if appropriate, to facilitate responses to them. If you're having any technical difficulty with Zoom, please call or text 857-200-0065 for assistance. The proposed project consists of one, a new tap station on Broad Street in Weymouth, which Eversource would construct, own, and operate to tap into an existing Eversource transmission line. Two, an approximately 3.2-mile long, 115 kilovolt underground new transmission line, which HMLP would construct, own, and operate, that would run primarily along public ways in both Weymouth and Hingham to transmit electricity to Hingham. And three, a new substation, which HMLP would also construct, own, and operate at the transfer station site off Old Hobart Street in Hingham to receive the electricity and distribute it to HMLP's customers. A description of each component and a map showing potential routes for the new transmission line and the locations of the new tap station and new substation appear in the notice you may have received by mail or seen in the newspaper. If you have not received a copy of the notice, we have copies available here for your review tonight. They're at the table as you entered. Council and company representatives for HMLP and Eversource will make a presentation regarding the project. I will then invite the public, both those in person and those on Zoom or telephone, to comment or ask questions. As appropriate, I will ask the company representatives to respond to the questions as we go. For those of you participating by Zoom or telephone, you will have a full opportunity to see and hear everything said during this hearing and to offer comments and ask questions. Participation instructions are in the notice of this public comment hearing that was published in newspapers and sent to addresses near the project. The notice for tonight's hearing in Weymouth and for the March 31st hearing in Hingham is posted on the Siting Board's project webpage, the EFSB calendar, and the HMLP project website. So 3 different places it's posted. The notice has links to obtain additional information. As stated earlier, we have copies of the notice at the table at the back of the room, really outside the room. The two public comment hearings for this project, tonight's and next week's, mark the beginning of a formal state-level decision-making process focused on whether to approve the project. The siting board, in making this determination, will do the following. First, pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 69J, the siting board will review HMLP's proposed project to ensure that it will provide a reliable energy supply with a minimum impact on the environment at the lowest possible cost. And two, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3, the siting board will determine whether to exempt the project from zoning requirements of the town of Hingham and the town of Weymouth, based on whether the present or proposed use of the land or structures is reasonably necessary for the convenience or welfare of the public. There are multiple ways that you can participate in the department's review of the project. In addition to commenting on the project tonight, you may file written comments by Monday, April 14, by email to me at the address in the notice, and to the project council whose addresses also are listed in the notice. After tonight's hearing, you may choose to seek participation as an intervener or limited participant in the proceeding. The deadline for requesting participation as an intervener or as a limited participant is Monday, April 14, 2025. So it's the same deadline for comments and for applying to participate in those additional ways. A full intervener has rights to ask discovery questions of the company, to present witnesses, to ask questions of witnesses testifying at the hearings, to file briefs and motions, and to appeal the decision of the siting board. In the alternative, you may participate as a limited participant, which would allow you to receive filings made in this proceeding and file briefs with the siting board. A limited participant does not have the right to appeal the decision. All information regarding this proceeding is and will continue to be posted in the EFSB's online file room, which is accessible to all. Information on participation is published on the siting board website, which outlines the different ways in which you can participate in our proceedings. The information on participation is also in the public comment hearing notice for this proceeding. If you would like a copy of the notice and intervention rules, please send your contact information to my email. So here's my email address. It's daniel.w.kelleher, Kelleher, at mass.gov, G-O-V. And if you email me, I can respond to that. Next, I will ask the company to make a presentation regarding the project. After that presentation, I will open the floor to comments and questions from members of the public. HMLP's legal counsel and its representatives are participating in this public comment hearing. Would legal counsel for the companies please introduce themselves?
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Keller and members of, can you hear me? Okay. How about now? Okay. Thank you, Attorney Kelleher and members of the board. On behalf of the Hingham Municipal Lighting Plant, my name is Robert Shapiro from the firm of Duncan Allen. Joining me remotely today is Attorney Deirdre Lawrence. After Eversource's attorney speaks, I will ask Thomas Morahan, the general manager of HMLP, and Tracy Adamski from Ty and Bond to make the PowerPoint presentation.
Good evening. My name is Erica Hafner, and I'm from the law firm of Keegan Werlin LLP at 99 High Street in Boston. I'm here on behalf of Eversource Energy with regard to the zoning exemption request associated with the tap station as part of the project. Appearing with me remotely, virtually, is David Rosenzweig, also from Keegan Werlin. And Eversource has a variety of subject matter experts and project management and outreach folks here to answer any questions that may arise from the public during the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Morahan. I'm the general manager of Hingham Municipal Lighting Plants. I'd like to thank everyone for their time tonight. We do have a little presentation to go through. So we have a short agenda that we'd like to present tonight. If you can move to the next slide. All right, we're going to go over the project need, the project overview, project schedule, what we anticipate for the construction process, how we're going to manage the construction impacts, the permitting, the outreach we've done, and the project contacts at the end of it. Okay. So Hingham Light, we've been around since 1893, so we've been around for a while. We have a mission to provide reliable electric service to the town of Hingham while keeping our rates reasonable, our service quality high, our operations environmentally sustainable, including a commitment to 100% carbon-free energy. We're one of 40 municipal light plants in the state of Massachusetts, and we serve approximately 10,500 customers. So just an overview, we're proposing to construct a new 3.2-mile underground 115 kVA transmission line and a new substation primarily to address reliability within Hingham. The new underground line will begin at an Eversource tap station in Weymouth. It's located near the skating rink. It'll travel beneath the public ways in Weymouth and Hingham, and it will terminate at a substation in the town of Hingham at the transfer station. The new line will protect Hingham customers from any possible extended outage, and it will also support our climate action plan and the state's electrification goals in the future. We propose to begin construction in 2027 and have initial operations in 2029. So currently we're fed via a pole line that runs along the tracks, the railroad tracks into Hingham from East Weymouth. You can see a picture here of the two lines currently on the one pole. There's 22 double circuit towers. That means the two lines share the same tower. Unlike other towns within Massachusetts that are primarily served by investor-owned utilities, Hingham only has one substation to feed the town. So if we lose these two lines for some reason, our town is without power, and it could be for an extended period. The new transmission line will address some of the state and federal power system reliability guidelines. And we did look at other non-transmission approaches such as solar and battery, things of that nature, but there was nothing that would adequately serve the town of Hingham for an extended time. So we looked at a number of different ways that we could get from the location in Weymouth to the location in Hingham. So this map is just a picture of the different routes we looked at that would allow us to get from the tap station in Weymouth to the tap station in Hingham. I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. And Tracy's going to talk about the site and road selection.
Thanks, Tom. And thank you everyone here today. My name is Tracy Adamski. I'm with Ty and Bond. I'm going to start talking about the site and route selection because we had 3 different components to this project. We kind of approached each similarly, where we looked at a range of alternatives for the 2 sites, the tap station site and the substation site. And then once those were identified, we looked at a number of options for the routes to connect those 2 points. We looked at appropriate criteria and applied them across all the routes that we looked at with the goal of minimizing our overall impacts related to construction and environmental impacts, minimize the system costs to the ratepayers, and ensure the system reliability. Again, the whole purpose of the project is to increase the reliability of Hingham's electric supply. And we valued community feedback and environmental justice objectives and held, as we'll see later on, a large number of meetings to gain input on the project. So what's bringing us in front of EFSB is the new transmission lines. So here we're showing what is our preferred route and our noticed alternative route. The preferred route is in red, and it generally follows along Broad Street through Weymouth and then into Hingham, where it comes up French Street and Hobart Street. You can see the 2 yellow lots on either side of the map, and that's where on the left-hand side is the Weymouth tap station. The right-hand side is the Hobart substation. The blue line is the Lake Street alternative. That's our noticed alternative, and it generally follows Lake Street. And then there's the route comes up Pleasant and Water, and then connects back on to Broad and High Street, and then it goes into Hingham, and again follows French Street to Hobart. And there is a variation on the Lake Street route that comes up Shawmut, and that's depicted by the dashed line, and that connects back into Broad Street. And the lines are about half a mile difference. So the Broad Street route is 3.2 miles, and the Lake Street is approximately 3.7 miles. The tap station is an air insulated tap station that is to be constructed, owned and operated by Eversource. It is on land that's currently owned by Eversource, and it's adjacent to the existing transmission lines that cross Broad Street, and it's adjacent to the rink as previously noted. And here you can see there's an existing access road to the rink comes through the Eversource property, and the tap station is proposed. It's the outline is in red on this map, and that's just north of the existing access road to the rink. The Hobart substation is proposed to be a gas insulated substation, and it's going to be located at the northeast corner of the Town of Hingham transfer station, which is off of Old Hobart Street. So it's in an area that's currently not being used by the transfer station. So the main impacts for the project will be during construction, and the construction impacts for the transmission line will be temporary. HMLP will work with the Weymouth and Hingham officials to manage traffic during construction, manage construction hours, as well as determining appropriate street restoration. HMLP will have a hotline and community liaison who will be responsible for addressing questions that come up during construction, and we'll have plans in place to address the construction-related impacts associated with noise, traffic, dust, and other related impacts. And our filing does include some of those best management practices. In general, this is just a sequence of events for the underground construction of the utility line. First thing that happens is the installation of the line. So there's saw cutting and of the pavement and excavating of the trench. The utility lines are then installed and backfilled. The vaults, so the manholes are going to be larger structures. Those will be installed as well along the route. Like similar process. The roadway will be saw cut, the trench excavated, and the vault installed. And then there'll be a temporary road surfacing. The cable will be pulled and spliced, and that'll be the connection between the two the tap station and the substation. And then about 9 months to a year later, there'll be permanent restoration. And we're proposing curb to curb restoration of pavement. And so there's a number of key permits and approvals. First and foremost is the petition to construct from EFSB. We will be in front of both conservation commissions in Hingham and Weymouth for orders of conditions, Weymouth for a stormwater management permit, and then a number of construction-related permits associated with the EPA construction general permit and dewatering permit as well. Oops. And so this is just a general overview of the project schedule. We've been working on this project for a number of years and have hosted a number of meetings with municipal officials, approximately 20 meetings from December of 2020 to the present. There have been a number of in-person open houses in Weymouth and in Hingham, as well as a virtual open house that was open to all. Actually, all of those were open to anyone who was interested, but we held them in both Weymouth and Hingham. Had the virtual public open house as well back in October of 2022. Our filing with EFSB and DPU was made in November of last year. We have this hearing and the hearing on Monday in Hingham. And then we'll be working through the other federal, state, and local permitting processes over the course of the next few years. Again, as Tom had mentioned, with the anticipated start of construction in 2027 and in service of 2029. And for additional project contacts, we do have a project website, HEIRP.com. And we have an email and phone for people who have questions or have comments if they want to send them to us. And Eversource also has a project info email and phone number if folks have questions. And that ends our presentation for this evening.
Next, we will proceed with public comments regarding the project. We will begin with federal, state, and local officials, appointed as well as elected officials who wish to be heard. Then we will proceed with the members of the public who have signed up to speak in the order in which they have signed up. Finally, we will allow anyone who wishes to speak but did not have the chance to sign up. If you are participating remotely and I call upon you to speak, we will move you into the Zoom panel so you can be seen and heard by the Zoom audience, as well as those here in the auditorium. For all speakers, please give your name and address, spell your name, and speak slowly and clearly. Please stop speaking if you see me raise my hand. If a company response to a comment or question asked is appropriate, I will ask the company to respond. A stenographer is transcribing this public comment hearing. In order to accurately transcribe everything, he needs to hear you clearly. In addition to the transcript, we are recording tonight's public comment hearing, and we'll post the recording on the Siding Board's YouTube channel. Anyone can review the recording at the YouTube channel address included in the notice. Do we have any federal officials present or on Zoom that wish to participate, to comment? Do we have any state officials? Any local officials? Would you please approach the lectern back there? And I'm sure you'll do this, but please give your name and the office you hold.
Sure. Thank you. Robert Luongo, that's Luongo, and I'm the planning director for the town of Weymouth. Thank you for holding this meeting in Weymouth tonight. So first of all, I'd like to commend both Hingham Light and their consultants for the outreach they've been doing in Weymouth. It was outlined by the representative from Ty and Bond. They have met with the mayor and some key staff members several times in the mayor's office to discuss the project. And obviously, they've had several community meetings in Weymouth with outreach to residents who would be affected by the project. So obviously, the town of Weymouth would rather not have a power line going down Broad Street, crossing a very sensitive environmental asset that we have at the Herring Run, at Broad Street and the Herring Run. We had wished there could have been an alternative, but understanding where we are in the process, we definitely want to work with Hingham Light to mitigate any impacts that the project will have on Weymouth. We do plan on filing a petition to intervene, understanding that the deadline for that is April 14th. So we just want to keep tabs on the project, make sure the residents that will be affected by this project have as much mitigation as possible. I just, in the presentation, talked about a vault, and I'm not clear if that vault would be in Weymouth. I know there would be, from our discussions with Hingham Light, there would be manholes along the route so they could service the wire at certain points. But I'm not sure where the vault would go. I'd just like some clarification if that's an underground vault along the right-of-way on Broad Street, or is it somewhere else? I'd like a clarification on that. But the other issue is, fortunately and unfortunately, Lower Jackson Square, in which this is the area in which the transmission line would, I would assume, go under the Herring Run. That area is going to be subject to quite a lot of activity in the next few years. Understanding that the schedule for Hingham Light is to start construction in the first quarter of 2027. We have a 200 unit development, a mixed-use development in 4 structures that will probably start construction the summer of this year, 2025, and probably be completed sometime in earliest 2028. And that's right at Lower Jackson Square. And to make matters even better, Mass DOT is undertaking a design study right now to replace the bridge at Broad Street that crosses over the Herring Run. And so we have these 2 major developments coming online. We don't have a timeline for when construction of the bridge would take place. I'm not even sure if they're at the 25% design phase. Fortunately, the same engineering group that's working for Hingham Light is also working for Mass DOT on the bridge work. So Ty and Bond is doing both. So hopefully there's good communications on that. But those are the major concerns with the construction of 200 residential units in 4 buildings, the reconstruction of the Broad Street Bridge. That's one of the reasons why we asked Hingham Light and Power to look at a variation of the Broad Street, veering off of Broad Street to get onto Lake Street and over to Pleasant Street and Water Street. You still have to cross the Herring Run, but it wouldn't be in the center of the construction that's going to take place. So we really, and I know Hingham Light's concerned about it as well as the town of Weymouth, and we're trying to figure out exactly how this can work out. So we have some concerns about that, and that's one of the reasons why I think we want to file to intervene on this so we can make sure we have a final say in it. So those are just my comments on it at this stage. Obviously, Mayor Headland is very concerned about the impacts and the impacts it's going to have on the residents and the impacts it's going to have on the Herring Run. And that's why we want to really watch this process very closely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Luongo. Would the company like to respond?
So I think there's, I guess, two items. One was the question with respect to vaults. Those are manholes. So we use that term interchangeably. So there's a number of manholes that will be constructed along the route, I think about every 1,500 or so linear feet along the route. So those will be underground manholes. And with respect to the routes, HMLP is, we have a noticed and preferred route. They score somewhat similarly as we go through our, typical routing matrix. And, we have been having, communication with the town of Weymouth and are aware that there's a number of things happening. And if the stars align, it may make sense for all these projects to be happening at the same time in Jackson Square, but we're prepared to use either route. So whichever works the best as the timing moves forward.
Thank you very much. Are there any other local officials? Okay. Next, we will take comments from members of the general public, beginning with those who registered first. Is Karen Rund here this evening? Thank you. And once you get to the lectern, please give your name, address, and spell your last name. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. My name is Karen Rund. R-U-N-D is my last name. I live at Roosevelt Road in Weymouth. I basically abut the proposed site near the Connell rink. Thank you for taking my questions regarding the open air station in Weymouth. I understand Hingham's need for new electrical corridor as the existing transmission lines are risky and outdated. As a resident of Roosevelt Road and a property owner with parcels next to and abutting the National Grid power lines, excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I have direct visual view from my house and backyard to the proposed tap station and proposed transmission structures. I have several questions regarding the project and information provided on the, excuse me, on the HERPS site. I will limit my immediate questions to the proposed open air tap stations and proposed transmission structures on the site. And if time permits, in the later comment period after others have spoken, I will ask my additional questions. First, in the diagram in the HERP site, I have questions regarding the proximity of the proposed tap station from my property line and also distance from my property line to the proposed 3 overhead to underground transmission structures. Based on the diagram on the HERP site, if the filing diagram that was out in the hall also on the HERP site, the distance between my property line and the tap station is listed at 222 feet. I'm just asking if I'm reading that correctly. Also, on the diagram, there are 3 circular items, which on the information in the mailing, I assume to be the overhead to underground transmission structures. Is this correct? Well, the circular items listed on the diagram, it does not provide the distance from my property line. Is this 10 feet, 20 feet, 50 feet, et cetera? What is the proposed dimensions of the 3 electrical transmission structures in terms of height, width, et cetera? Will these be metal poles, triangular structures similar to the existing transmission towers? I have a question. Will these structures be enclosed or grounded? Will there be any electromagnetic radiation, electrical current given off by the proposed structures or the proposed open air tap station? What is the safe distance from these structures? One listed on the diagram has a circle around it with listed as a 5-foot buffer. Also questions, will there be noise, buzzing, humming, zapping given off by the 3 towers or proposed tap station that will be audible to residents in the surrounding areas? During construction, if approved, will there be blasting involved? The land in the surrounding areas is ledge, and vibrations from blasting may cause damage to surrounding property holders' dwellings. Does National Grid, Hingham Municipal Light have a proposed remediation plans to deal with any damage resulting from construction? And then will residents be notified in advance of any blasting, or are there any anticipated power outages planned during construction? Also, if the proposed open air tap station location is not approved, are there alternative locations on the existing National Grid site that are being considered? Will additional parking spaces be built to accommodate the rink and pool during construction or on a permanent basis? National Grid owns the property. It would be good faith gesture to the Weymouth constituents to provide additional parking spaces for users of the Connell Rink and Pool. And then I also have one additional question for a site plan. I noticed in the filing that they said that they're looking for a waiver of a site plan for Weymouth. Has a site plan review been conducted for the proposed Weymouth location? And it mentions that the protection of adjoining premises and general neighborhood from any substantially adverse impacts created by proposed development. So I'm sorry, I know that's a lot of questions. I just wanted to get those in here, and then if somebody could address those questions either at this meeting or in writing at a later time.
Thank you, Ms. Rund.
Thank you.
Would the company like to respond?
So, hi, it's Erica Hafner again on behalf of Eversource Energy. I have with me Joseph Mayall, who is the project manager for this particular project. And so he can address, there were a lot of technical questions there. So Joe will address as much as he can and as much as he can remember. But I did want to just address kind of the legal site plan question that you asked at the end of your question. And so Eversource is a co-petitioner in this proceeding because we require certain zoning exemptions to build the tap station for HMLP. And the town of Weymouth, the use at that location for a tap station is not a permitted use. And the town of Weymouth cannot issue a variance for use. So there's no way the the structure could be built if we proceeded with local permitting. So that's why we're before the state. Sometimes Eversource can go locally and sometimes they go to the state. And so this is an instance where we have to go to the state. And so we do anticipate that kind of all the individual zoning exemptions, including site plan that the company has requested from the EFSB will be the subject of great review and consideration by the board. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Mayall so that he can address some of your technical questions.
Thank you, Erica. My name is Joe Mayall. I'm a manager of the Transmission Project Management Group in Eastern Mass. And I've been the acting project manager on this project with Hingham since its conception. And I'd just like that we have a detailed site plan here. This has been submitted for, I believe, submitted to in your filing. But I just want to walk this over. It's a little more detailed than what I think's been shown. I just want to make sure we have the right property. So just 1 second. Okay, to rehash what was just said, okay, for everybody. What I just showed there was this sketch here that is a site plan, and what I just showed was the dimension of the Eversource closest electrical structure inside our station to her property, which was 222 feet, a little more detailed. I just wanted to make sure we had the right property that we were talking about. And then we got into a side discussion there that our station, her property is on the other side of the existing transmission line. So there are existing transmission structures between the property we're talking about and the Eversource proposed site for the structure, substation, tap station. The transmission structures that we're going to put up, which are 3, are going to be within the confines of the existing transmission structures that are there now. So there really won't be that much of an impact. We're taking 1 down, we're putting 3 up. There's a 17-foot, that was one of the questions, there's a 17-foot increase in height. So they are a little taller. That's pretty standard now when we are retrofitting all of our transmission structures. They are basically the same visual color. They will be all galvanized steel. Because they are taller, they'll be a little bit, I think one of the questions was the girth at the base. They will be a little bigger at the base, I believe. Except that some of those that are out there are lattice towers, so they do have a bigger width at the base. But as far as monopole structures go, they will be a little bigger. And then there were a lot of questions that were asked. Let's see, one of the proposed questions was like, why was it going there? We do, Eversource is an open transmission access company. We do have interconnections from various entities requested of us to gain access to our transmission lines. Hingham Municipal approached us to basically tap into our lines. And Hingham did the research of why they wanted to tap here, so they can talk to that specifically and address that question. Do you have a few others that I can answer?
So, Ms. Rund, if you're going to ask questions, would you go back to the lectern? And I can, while she's walking, okay. A microphone is coming to you.
Sorry about that. So the question I had for will there be electromagnetic radiation or electrical current given off by the proposed structures that are either being built or the open air tap station itself?
No, I'll refer that to Hingham. Hingham did the EMF studies for this.
Okay.
What else?
Okay. And then for the other one that I had a question on for construction or will there be any blasting with the demolition or the construction of the
Sure.
towers that
The
could affect the
construction,
property?
the construction, as Hingham put the slide up, the construction period is 3 years. We figure we're going to be about 2.5 years on that, on the site. As you mentioned, there is a lot of rock.
Yeah.
There will be about, there will be a term of site preparation, and then there'll be some civil construction, above grade electrical, and then some testing and commissioning. And then the foundation design work, we're still in the progress of doing that. As that design progresses, we'll get into final foundation designs. That will determine whether we're into a blasting phase or a grinding phase. The rock, some of that rock is going to have to come out. If we are into blasting, that will be vetted out with the Department of Public Utilities, how we do that. It will be scrutinized. But it's not and then you asked, how do we monitor that with abutters? When we have done these projects before, we put seismic monitors all around. And of course, if we have to use blasting nets, items like that to contain everything, a lot of times they'll do test charges, make sure there's no, how much of a blast they can use. I'm not saying we're going to blast, not at all. It could be mechanical means of taking things out. And then we also do, with residents' approval, we also do video monitoring of foundations and things like that to protect the abutter and the company. Make sure, like, okay, this crack was here before, we can address it. Let's go fix this.
Yeah.
So we protect everybody in situations like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying blasting is a real thing. We just don't know. We haven't finished the engineering on the designs yet.
Yeah, thank you. And my concern too is I have my foundation on the back side of the house facing the property line is exposed. It's not underground. It's actually all exposed on the sides and front of the
Right,
house. It's
right,
underground, but
yeah.
on the backside. It's
And one thing to keep in mind is that like we actually have transmission lines between our structure and your house, right? We don't want to knock them down either, right?
right.
So I mean, we have an ice rink right next to us too. So I mean, we don't want any damage at all, definitely.
Right.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Were there any other questions? You had quite a litany of questions there.
So I'm going to just suggest that Ms. Rund continue conversations with the company, and there are probably
Okay.
going to be more details that need to be worked out.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll move on to
Okay,
the
thank you.
next questioner, commenter. Neil McGrath. Please state your name, your address, and please spell your last name.
Good evening. My name is Neil McGrath. I live on Mount Vernon Road West in Weymouth. My last name is McGrath. Many of the comments that I wanted to make were already picked up upon by most everyone, but I did want to comment further about the routing that's being reviewed for the construction. And I know that they have there's a preferred route down Broad Street mostly through the square. And while that is the most cost-effective route, and I know, that's one of the most important things in the documentation is environmental protection and cost. That will absolutely wreak havoc for the people in Weymouth to have that type of blockage on one of our major roads in town. Lake Street, which is their alternative route, again, that will create issues for the folks in that area, but from a traffic perspective, it won't be nearly as dramatic. And that's just something I know we talked about that, but it would be really a very significant issue with traffic. If you block up that whole area of Broad Street, and then of course down in Jackson Square, we're going to have construction there anyway. It will create some real challenges. So again, some of the other questions were already addressed earlier, but I wanted to just bring that up again because it's not a small issue. That area will be completely jam-packed with traffic, and I know we'll have a lot of folks that we'll have the police down there trying to control the traffic as best they can, but as we all know, you try to change a tire on a road and it gives you a road backup. So this would be very dramatic. So I hope that will be, should they decide to move forward, that Lake Street be given more consideration. Again, I know it'll be a little bit more costly, but for the taxpayers and residents of Weymouth in that area, and for folks driving through Weymouth, it will certainly it make their days a little bit easier for sure. So
Thank
that's
you,
all I
Mr.
wanted to
McGrath.
comment on. Thank you.
Art Bliconi? It's possible that I've mispronounced the last name. Appears to start with, oh, there we are.
Yes, hello. My name is Art Blakeney, Bleakney, and I live at 503 Broad Street, right in Weymouth. What I'm hoping is that you won't go down Broad Street because it'll be quite a disturbance. And Broad Street is nice and smooth now, and I don't hear the traffic going by. But a few years ago, it had rough spots, and when traffic would go by, you could really hear it, especially if it was trucks or landscaping. So I'm hoping it won't be disturbed. I'm hoping they'll go by one of the alternative routes that they have there, and so that's just what I wanted to say. I'm just against it going down Broad Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Peggy Failtree. And we can also bring a mic to you if you would prefer that. And that comment was just meant for people in general. So if you're a future commenter and you raise your hand and you don't move, we'll bring you a microphone.
My name is Peggy Faletra, Faletra, and I live at 493 Broad Street. And I was just wondering, are they going to tear up the sidewalk or the street? And are we going to be able to get in and out of our driveways? Those are my 2 questions.
Great, thank you very much. Would the company like to respond to those 2 questions?
So the design of the line hasn't been finalized, but the intent is to keep it within the street and minimize impacts to the sidewalk. And the contractors who will be out there will work to make sure that people do have access to and from their homes and businesses. But that'll be something that, there'll be a lot of coordination that happens during the construction process.
And if I could just ask a question, for a given stretch of street, for approximately how long does the work last? Say for a block? Or is that a question that can be answered?
Yeah, I'm going to turn that to Tom Converse, who's online.
Yeah, this is Tom Converse. We have, we estimate that there's a process, I think she outlined it. I'm sorry, this is Tom Converse with LIG Consultants, and our office is in Canton, Mass. Converse, CONVERSE, it's on the screen. There's a process that I think was outlined. We expect to do the duck bank in segments that are like 500-foot segments. So the process, and I think it was in the slideshow, would be, we would mark it out, we would cut it, we would do the saw cut, and then we would do the excavation. And if you looked at it, it could be something like 10 days in an area. But we think we're going to be doing concurrent work so that some of this work, like the surveying, things will be done ahead of time, and then they'll be able to be to expedite it. But we think they're going to be doing 500-foot segments. So I don't know if that answers the question enough, or you need more clarity.
If you can hear me, that you work in 500-foot segments and it would be upwards of 10 days and might be fewer than 10 days. Is that a fair summary?
And if there's a manhole involved in that segment, it might be a little longer. But that was kind of some of the estimates we had.
All right, I think that
when we get with the contract, we'll refine it when we get the contractor.
Thank you. All right, so the next commenter, we have Louis Dallas something.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Louis D'Alessandro, D'Alessandro, at 70 Lake Street. So some of my questions is where I'm on Lake Street, and that is the alternative. What is going to be the determining factor that decides whether it's coming down Lake Street or Broad Street? That's one of my questions. The other one I have is, has there been any studies done on what this effect could have on the herring that we've become accustomed to have running up every, probably April and May? Is any of the studies been done to see what that's going to cause for the fish and the wildlife that live along that herring run? The other one is if we do come down Lake Street or even Broad Street, I'm curious, how wide is the trench going to be? It looks like there's 4-inch pipes coming down there. That's not going to be, it's going to be pretty wide. And would like to know where they're planning on putting some of these manholes for them to be able to work on. That's one of the other ones. And one other thing is, seeing we're adding 115 kilovolts, I'm curious how much, and which was already asked, how much more EMF is going to be given off at our MDC where we have our kids and everybody else skating? Is there any been thought on what cause in fact that could be? And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. D'Alessandro. Would the company like to respond?
So I'll start, and then I think there's a few people online who can help answer some of the other questions. So Lake versus Broad, I think that's going to be a continued conversation with the town of Weymouth. As I indicated, HMLP is willing to go down either route. We do want to make sure if there's synergies in Broad Street, then, that makes sense for us to be using that. So I think we've continued to have that conversation. We're moving forward with Broad as our preferred at this time. With respect to the herring run, we did take a look at that from a EMF perspective. So maybe we can hit both that comment and the EMF concern. I think Chris Long may be online.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me okay. Good evening. My name is Chris Long. I'm a principal at Gradient, an environmental and health sciences consulting firm based in Boston. Gradient prepared an EMF or electric and magnetic field assessment for the proposed project that was submitted and will be reviewed by the EFSB. I'll first address the question about impacts to herring at the herring run from an EMF perspective, which is my area of expertise. We addressed that in the EMF assessment report. For several reasons, we concluded that potential EMF impacts from the project cables are not expected for the river herring. First, it's not established in the scientific literature that river herring are magnetosensitive. In other words, able to detect or rely on magnetic fields. More specifically, it's not known whether they rely on the Earth's geomagnetic field to navigate to their spawning grounds. Research indicates that they instead rely on other environmental cues, including olfaction and water temperature, to inform seasonal migration. Next, even if river herring are in fact magnetosensitive and use the Earth's geomagnetic field for navigation or migration purposes, the project's 60 hertz alternating current cables will generate time-varying AC magnetic fields that differ from the Earth's static or steady magnetic field. There are not, as I mentioned, it's not established that river herring are magnetosensitive. I'm not aware of extensive studies of the impacts of magnetic fields on river herring. However, there are studies of other marine species, such as salmon, eels, and sharks that are known to be magnetosensitive, known to utilize the Earth's steady geomagnetic field for navigation and orientation purposes. Despite that, it's not established that they can detect or be impacted by 60 hertz alternating current magnetic fields. There is a difference between 60 hertz AC magnetic fields and the steady static magnetic fields, such as the Earth's geomagnetic field. For these reasons, we concluded that there's an absence of scientific support for potential EMF impacts to herring at the Weymouth herring run. With respect to EMF impacts to people, that was also a focus of the EMF assessment that Gradient performed. I understand the public concerns about EMF since it's a complex subject that people are not generally familiar with. Plus, there is quite a bit of misinformation on the web. So I'd like to briefly share a few key findings from the EMF assessment that Gradient performed for the project underground transmission line. First, since the project will consist of an underground transmission line, there will be no above ground electric fields because they'll be shielded by cable components, the duct banks, and the intervening earth. Magnetic fields are not shielded in the same way as electric fields, and there will be magnetic fields present above the project line. We performed a modeling analysis to predict above ground magnetic field levels above the project cables, finding that even the maximum modeled underground magnetic field levels directly above the buried cables will be low relative to health-based exposure guidelines, as well as compared to other common magnetic field exposures. Our modeling analysis also showed the rapid drop-off in magnetic field levels as you move away from the buried cables, with reductions on the order of about 90% at lateral distances of 25 feet from the circuit center line. In summary, even modeled maximum magnetic field levels are well below health-based exposure guidelines for power frequency magnetic fields, supporting the safety of the project lines from an EMF perspective.
Thanks, Chris. And I think the last question was with respect to trench width. And Tom, can I have you answer that?
Sure. Yeah, so I think there were a couple of questions asked about that. When we do the excavation, we'll probably need about 11 feet of workspace. If there's a manhole, we might need 18, and that's really for the trucks that are going to be doing the work. But the typical trench that we'll be digging will be about 4 feet wide and 5 feet deep. And the duct banks, and there's a couple of examples in the EMF study as well as in the section 5 of the filing that kind of shows typical duct banks. But there's 3 6-inch conduits, some 4-inch conduits for protection, and then some others for fiber and temperature sensing. That duct bank is probably like 28 by 26 inches wide and high. And it's concrete encased, it's about 30 inches down. So it'll be a wide trench of about 40 inch, 5 feet wide when we dig it, but then we'll be backfilling it, concrete encasing it.
Thank you. Next, we have Wendy Cullivan. And after that is somebody from Idlewell, and I'm not going to be, I can't read the name. So just be prepared.
Hi, I'm Wendy Cullivan. I live on Roosevelt Road. Could you specifically give the size of the?
Hold up, just one moment, please. Would you spell the name?
Oh, Cullivan, Cullivan. Wendy, Wendy.
And your address, please.
150 Roosevelt Road. What's that? So could you describe the size of the tap station, including any fencing?
So we will ask, is that your only question?
I'm not sure yet.
Sure, you can stay near there. Would the company respond to that question, please?
So we're going to clear 2.6 acres right in front of the ice rink. The the substation itself, between the substation and the transmission right of way, is about 25,000 square feet of land.
What's the dimension of that, the outside dimension?
It's not exactly a square. Do you have the drawing in her book? Okay, it's if you're looking at a fence line, it's 164 feet by 159 feet. Roughly, if you're looking at a fence line.
So that's the fence around the structure?
No, it's not exactly like that.
This says it's so small, I couldn't read it.
This is This is almost like 300 roughly, approximately, like that. So about 156 and the column's about 300, I think.
And that's the building or the
This
fence line?
this is the fence line.
Okay. Now out on that diagram.
Do you need a calculator?
I know.
Kidding.
Yeah.
The yellow outline,
Ms.
What goes on
Colvin,
the-
would you just speak to the microphone?
the yellow outline that's on the diagram out there, what is that representing? There's a yellow boundary
Property line.
of what?
The property line of. Property line of, I'll draw it on your drawing. The property line of our area. Which is this.
Well, you own the entire row though, right?
Well, we have an easement. Yeah, which is this basically,
Right.
like basically that.
So will there be construction involved in that entire yellow outline?
More so around the transmission lines that you see there, the transmission structures you see here, and then all of this. And then all of this area right in here. This will all be constructed.
Okay, and pretty close to the end of my questions. The access, will all the access to the construction area occur off of Broad Street?
Yes, they're shown on that drawing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we have there's an existing gravel driveway there, and then there's another one here, and it shows it right here.
So you won't be going up commercial up to the President's Hill area and accessing to the backside of that?
As of right now, no.
Okay. But we would get notice. We would get notice
Yeah.
if you would.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're speaking in reference to the tap station, is that right? The construction of the tap station?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my final question is, you made reference to impact on the ratepayers earlier on.
That's a question you're directing to the company, right?
Whoever can answer it. If you could just
Oh.
expand on that. That's my final question.
Again, Tom Moran, the general manager at Hingham Light. So this project will be paid for by the ratepayers of Hingham. There'll be no impact to any ratepayers, National Grid ratepayers within Weymouth. The entire project is covered by the ratepayers of Hingham.
Do you mean Eversource or National Grid? Just to,
National Grid is the investor-owned utility within Weymouth. Eversource owns the transmission lines. So the customers in Weymouth are actually National Grid customers.
thank you. The next commenter may be Jay from Idlewell Boulevard. Okay. Is there anyone from Idlewell Boulevard? All right, the next person on the list is Linda D'Angelo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very much so.
Thank you. My name is Linda, Linda, D'Angelo, Diangelo. I live at 40 Neck Street in Weymouth. I am the president of the Back River Watershed Association. We are an established organization of decades of work from extraordinary people here in Weymouth. Our founder is Mary F. Toomey, who has received the late Mary F. Toomey, and Dr. Sears of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution that have saved the Back River, had it designated an area of critical environmental concern. It is a a very special place in Massachusetts, another designation, a local scenic river, and a wildlife refuge. These individuals work to save this river and the abutting lands around the Back River. It is the mission of our organization to protect this river, its fisheries, which they help to restore, including the Weymouth Herring Run, which is a historic herring run and one of the most productive in Massachusetts. It is my deep concern, representing the Back River Watershed Association, that your board and the decision makers here truly appreciate the significance of this important estuary. So important that Dr. Mary Sears came to Weymouth in the 70s to assist Mary Toomey in saving the river, the entire river, and all its lands. One of the key objectives was to try to restore the fisheries. And the Weymouth Herring Run, fortunately, has been lovingly cared for by our herring wardens through the years. And I would say the great work from the town of Weymouth, assisting them in keeping this run vital. Herring are a forage fish. They are small. They are fascinating, and they like Weymouth here. And it is essential that this fish is protected. I know that there was a gentleman that earlier was addressing the concerns over the EMFs. I appreciate that report. The concern I have here is not only are we now looking at more of these types of subsea power cable stations everywhere because for the increasing need for electricity, but how they are affecting didronymous fish populations, which the Division of Marine Fisheries, the town of Weymouth, the Back River Watershed Association is actively working at preserving, increasing population, and hoping to do a feasibility study that would allow our herring to continue through the reservoir up to Great Pond. They currently are spawning at Whitman's Pond, which is a pond that has a tremendous problem with invasive weed species. So we are greatly concerned, particularly with the route going through Lower Jackson Square, where the first set of 7, we call them stairs or ladders for the herring. That's the first set. It is an incredibly sensitive area. I think our planning director, Bob Luongo, addressed that issue with the major construction and renovation to Jackson Square will continue to go on. I think it makes better sense that this project be looked at in the route through Lake Street. We have to protect the ACEC. We understand the whole habitat and predation cycle of the bird life, of the wildlife, with the fish life, and so on and so forth. It is very critical. That is our job. That is what I want to address. And I further want to bring to your attention that there has been a very recent study that I would like to bring up in the Marine Environmental Research of February 2025 on this exact issue concerning the electronic magnetic fields in didronymous fish spawning migration, an urgent call for knowledge, because it is unknown and there is more research that needs to be done, lab work, site work, and so forth. And this is the problem. We're trying to increase this fish population. If we don't protect this fish, this species, the wonderful fish dinners we all enjoy that are already in depleted state, many of the fish that we like to think about, our cod, our haddock. These fisheries are in trouble. They're collapsing. And so I also urge you to please be in touch with, has anyone contacted the Division of Marine Fisheries in Massachusetts? I think that is essential information, and I hope that there has been some, I would say, improvement to the type of construction that you are proposing. What is the best plan to try to protect, because you say there's unknowns here? Well, there's a big risk here. And these fish are very sensitive. No, they don't like the cold. They might not like this either. So we're taking enormous risks with a very historical part of our Weymouth history. And the population of these fish are in jeopardy everywhere. The other issue I have to bring up is the impacts to the salt marshes. We're talking about the Massachusetts wetlands laws. Weymouth has very strict wetlands laws. How are we impacting the salt marshes, the mud flats, the nursery, basically in the estuary will be affected? There are serious concerns, and I'd like some answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would the company like to respond?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
We do recognize that the herring run is very important resource in the community. We have not reached out to DMF, but we will do so. And, we can work with time of year restrictions and, we don't, I guess to your last comment, we don't have any proposed impacts to salt marsh or the estuary. We're further down, we're out of the coastal area. We don't have direct wetland impacts. We're looking at going underneath the herring run and, avoiding
But that is still
direct.
part of the ACEC. So you need to go through the ACEC agency, the state agency. Yeah. My concern, of course, here is because the Back River, Weymouth Back River, is an ACEC, that's an area of critical environmental concern. We need to have this board, the decision makers here, need to go through the ACEC agency, state agency. That's imperative, because as much as you say, well, we're not going to go so far near wetlands, the fact is, once you go into the area of Lower Jackson Square particularly, where those fish ladders exist, that is going to affect the ACEC. That's a fact. That has to be addressed. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you for bringing your concerns to us.
Thank you.
Would the company like to respond any further?
I think we've heard the concerns.
So you have to go through the ACEC state agency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who did not sign up that would like to speak? Gentleman on the right, followed by the gentleman in the hat.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. My name is Rick Coughlin, Coughlin. I'm at 30 Veronica Lane here in Weymouth. I'm a counselor at large here in the town. And I didn't intend to actually speak. I came to look for some information, but some questions have come up that I'd like to ask. First and foremost, just to make sure I'm clear on this, my understanding is the whole purpose of this is because of what's going on with Hingham right now, with the entire town's power source coming over two lines on the same poles down up off of Fort Hill and going on to the substation out to, I'm not even sure where it is. Is it over on Hobart now, or is it on Ward Street? And I wanted to find out, My understanding is this is an auxiliary line, correct? It's going underline now, so it could be protected. So should anything happen with these other lines, then this would be able to provide power for the town. That's the first question I think I have. Secondly is, we heard some stuff about EMFs with the underground and what was going on above the ground there. Question I have is, what about EMFs around the substation itself, the tap station itself? And what would that do? A third thing would be simply a comment, and I'm just going to echo what Bob Luongo had mentioned here and a few others regarding the routing of this. When you take a look at coming up the Broad Street, you're going through three major squares here in the town: Lower Jackson Square, Jackson Square proper, Central Square, and then continuing on Broad Street. With the construction that's going to be going on over the next several years, with the bridge, with the development that's going to be going on in Lower Jackson Square, with another one that's proposed a little bit further down from this 200 units that Bob is talking about, it will be a nightmare for people trying to get anywhere in Weymouth, throughout East Weymouth. And so I would urge that if that's the case, it would go down the Lake Street route. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coughlin. Would the company like to respond?
I guess again, to your question of need, this new proposed line will be an underground line. It will feed a new substation in Hingham, and it will have the capacity to carry the town of Hingham should we have a problem with the two existing lines. So this is a reliability project at this point, and it's to feed the town of Hingham via an alternate route.
I think your other question was with respect to EMF, and I'd like to see if Chris Long can come back on.
Hi, this is Chris Long from Gradient again. I can speak briefly about EMFs from equipment at the tap station. Yes, they can be a source of electric and magnetic fields, but primarily within the fence line of the tap station itself. Just how the equipment is designed, conductors are located very close to each other. As a result, electric and magnetic fields drop off very rapidly as you move away from equipment such as switchgear. We've already heard some discussion about setback distances. I think there was reference to properties on Roosevelt Road that are on the other side of the Eversource right-of-way from the tap station. There was reference to a distance of over 200 feet. That is a large setback distance from a tap station. As a result, you would not expect there to be any significant impact of, let's say, magnetic fields from the tap station at such a distance. So primarily, the electromagnetic fields are going to be present within the tap station property. They drop off very rapidly with distance as you move away from the equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Long. The gentleman in the hat.
Hi, my name is Robert Preble, Preble. I live at 15 Walmsley Lane, which is pretty much diagonally across from the skating rink. I wanted to talk a little bit about staging area. Where will all this equipment be parked? You're going to have a considerable amount of ductwork that's going to go underground. Where's that going to be kept? How is that going to be moved back and forth from the staging area to where the trench is going? How's that going to impact everything? Are these things going to be in my backyard for the next 2 years? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're really early in the process. We do not have a contractor at this point. And a lot of the construction concerns will be addressed as we move forward. But at this point, we have not looked at staging areas. All of those type of activities will be coordinated with whatever contractor we end up hiring for this project. But at this point, we're too early in the process to be able to address any of those concerns. We will work with the residents and the town of Weymouth to ensure that people are notified and that people are happy with where we are storing equipment for the construction.
Thank you. Are there other members in the audience who would like to speak? And after this gentleman, we will go to the person who's online and raise their hand.
Hello, my name is Mike Lang, and unlike all these people, I don't live in Weymouth or Hingham. I live in Braintree. I've been addressing environmental and other issues in the Four River Basin, the three communities in the Four River Basin for over 50 years. I also sat for a while on the Braintree Planning Board. And my first comment is, I've seen more documentation from a customer that wants to put in a parking in a garage in their house. This is an embarrassment. You got one page of information for these people on exactly the impact these people will have. So on that point, I am also glad to see you talking about your first page you had there showed the existing power line that runs along the tracks. And that's a big concern for me because my brother lives in that area. And he's very concerned about that because when it was put in, the power line, when it ran through Weymouth, was above ground. When it went to the Hingham border, it went below ground. And that, to me, in all the 50 years I've been working on these issues, is equality. I think that the town of Weymouth has to have the same consideration as Hingham or any other community. And in saying that, I have to ask somebody, the engineer, why the building in Weymouth is enclosed and the building, the taproom area or the building in the facility in Weymouth is open. Now, my assumption is that it's a transformer location. Is that correct?
So I'm going to let the company respond to all of your questions. Do you have
Sure.
any others?
Oh, yeah.
How about we start with those three? We'll start with those three. And then.
So I'm not sure what you're referring to as going underground. Our lines.
Well, the existing power line that runs along the track, when they put it in, was above line in Weymouth. When it got to the Hingham border, it went below ground, which makes it less attractive or more attractive.
Yeah, so
that to me represents a difference in litigation.
Yeah. So that's not true. The existing lines that feed Hingham are overhead on a single pole along the tracks. They don't go underground until it gets to the substation at the transfer station in Hingham. So they are completely overhead right now at this point.
When I visit my brother, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
Thank you. You might want to stick
Yeah,
around.
no, I will.
Okay, the other, and why is it that the building in Hingham is going to be enclosed and it's right near the dump?
Yeah.
Is basically what it is. Yet the facility that you have in Weymouth, where children are, is open.
So the facility in Weymouth, we have a pretty good piece of land. There's 2 acres of land there.
Yeah.
So they can put a open air station, air insulated station in that area that it's big enough. The area in Hingham is a very small plot of land. we couldn't find a large enough piece of land to put air insulated switchgear in there. So we had to put gas insulated switchgear. Gas insulated switchgear requires a building. So that's the reason for the building in Weymouth, in Hingham rather.
Now, I'm trying to remember back to my days in the planning board, and it seemed to me that there was something called attractive nuisance. I don't know if you know that term.
I don't know that term. No.
I'm sure that somebody out there
Before you
knows
go
that
on,
term.
can we just respond to that first question, which had to do with documentation? You know, he referenced the limited amount of documentation. Could you respond to that, please?
I'm not sure what documentation you're.
You have one page. One page here tells, and it doesn't say anything about the impact, actually. It just tells you basically what the design is. It's in here.
Okay. I think we're.
But it doesn't go into actual impact or how the machine.
Okay, I think the gentleman's referring to the notice, and the 7-page notice, which, and what I have here is a volume which is available to you if you reach out to us.
So do these people have access to that?
Everybody, and the notice.
Do they have to go to your office?
The notice is clear. There's many ways you can get the notice. You can get the application. You can get it through the siting board. You can get it through Hingham, and we're happy to provide it.
I just found out about 2 days ago.
It's at the library. It's the town. It's and the notice is clear about that. I'm sorry you don't have it, and I'm happy to get it.
No,
to you.
but I've been to, in 50 years, I've been to an awful lot of these meetings here, and I've seen far better documentation there, and you really got to get your act together on your next one.
So they do have a lot of documentation that's available, and I'm sure he could assist you with finding it. Mr. Lang, if you could ask your next question?
Sure. Now, how about that? Now, do you know what attractive nuisance is? You know that term?
Well, I'm going to basically have you direct the questions to the company, but
well,
yes.
the thing is, his way I'm seeing this, you're putting a very dangerous facility right in the middle of an area where we have ballparks and we have skating rinks and all these kids. And I know that back when I was a kid, I would have loved to have climbed that fence. And I'm sure that these kids would, and they would be throwing bottles over the fence and things. That's an attractive nuisance.
I guess I would have to ask Eversource to respond to the question as far as the station.
Possibly how you're going to impact the mitigation.
So let's
the
actually,
kids.
let's have Eversource respond. I think
guess
the question is there a concern that the tap station is an attractive nuisance?
Let me respond here. So there's nothing new that we're installing here. This is a bread and butter utility, not only to Eversource, but to any utility in the United States. This type of, it's not even a substation, it's a switching station. These switching stations exist pretty much everywhere in the United States. I don't know, I've been in the utility industry, I'm almost embarrassed to say, for 38 years. I have not heard of somebody climbing over the fence into a switching station. We also have security systems, extensive security systems in place that, alert authorities, alert company authorities, and we take security very, it's very important to us. It's very important to the public that we do this, and I don't think somebody's going to climb a fence and get into one of our substations.
You don't have kids.
Yes, I do. I have
All right.
3 kids.
Then you understand. Now, how many of your facilities are in the playground?
Well, we don't put them in a playground.
Now, well, that's basically, if you look at that facility, you got ballparks, you got a skating rink. What would you call it? I'd call it a playground.
So what I don't want to do is have a debate about this.
Sure.
And Mr. Lang, you've raised this issue, which is a legitimate issue. And
Oh, you don't
But-
think it's a legitimate?
I say it is a legitimate
All right.
issue, but we're not going to debate it right now. I
I
wanted to
want-
give the company a chance to respond, and they have. Go ahead, Mr. Lang.
All right, thank you. I have one last one question, and it's more of a point of interest. It seemed to me that I recall reading that that Hull gets their power through Hingham, correct, Joan? I'm putting you on the spot. All right, I'll put her on the spot. I wanted to put her on the spot. But I recall back seeing the big power, the truck generators down in Hull when they lost power. And I was wondering how this is going to impact Hull, if in fact Hull will have access to this power.
So right now, this project is a Hingham municipal light project. Hull is currently fed by National Grid via two 23 kV lines that run through Hingham on a right of way that National Grid owns. Hull is not part of this project. We have not had conversations with Hull regarding this project. They are aware of it, but they are not involved with it.
Are the power lines that feed Hull distinct from the power lines that feed Hingham that are part of this project?
Yeah, those power lines run along Fort Hill Street. They run down through Fresh River and down Hobart on a completely different right of way. They're in the public way for part of the way. They get to Cross Street in Hingham and they go down a right of way through.
That's good.
through
Thank you.
Hingham. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lang. So just. We do have a speaker online who's the mayor. So we're going to have, no,
Right there.
who is not online. He's actually here.
Mayor is right here and he's waving at you.
Please, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the elected officials that are here. I see my former colleague representing Hingham, Hull, Cohasset, and Councilor Coughlin. Thank you. Mike Lang has been active on, where'd you go? There you are. On a lot of issues on the South Shore. We appreciate the interest from Braintree. Mike, attractive nuisance. I thought you were talking about my ex-girlfriend. But on a serious note, for the record, I just want to get on the record for the people that are attending, people watching online, regarding some of the discussions we've had and make a couple of points for you folks. And it's a little bit of a frustrating process. We find ourselves in an interesting position here in Weymouth. While this is going on and this proposal is being vetted and discussions are happening with the folks from Hingham, we're actually having discussions with the folks in Braintree about running a water line through the town of Braintree to bring MWRA water to Weymouth. And it's frustrating to look at the different, I would say, state regulations, laws that kind of govern the process, where we're fending for ourselves and dealing with in Braintree, coming up with an agreement, and they can kind of hold us up for whatever they want. We're hoping that Braintree is reasonable while our hands are tied on this process. The residents of Weymouth don't understand, in some cases, fully the distinction between the two proposals that are happening. Hingham Power and Light has you guys and the regulations that govern these projects kind of on their side, and I understand we're somewhat limited in what we can ask for in mitigation. We're learning that in the process. So we do have an MOU that we're going to put forward to them that has some reasonable asks. They're not as extensive as we would like, based on our understanding of DPU regulations. And the folks of Weymouth, some don't understand why we can't stop something like this. So we know that's part of the process that you're involved in explaining those regulations. We appreciate that. But I just want to reiterate some of the things that we're concerned about. And I want to, if I could, and from outside the parameters of what tonight's focus should be about, based on some of the questions that were asked earlier, I'd just like to weigh in on a couple of those if I could.
Yes, you may.
Yes, thank you. I think the
route has been discussed, and that's something that we've spoke at length about with Hingham Light and Power. Initially, the discussion centered around Broad Street, primarily Broad Street, and we had just been in the process of paving Broad Street. I can't even think of what year we started these discussions. As we moved on, we thought it would be better to go down Lake Street, given the condition, because we did undertake a paving of Broad Street. As this process has taken as long as it's taking, what's happening now is we've got a terrible situation with Lake Street. We've just recently saw upgrades to the utility lines on underground utilities on Lake Street, and it's in dire need of paving. By the time we can't wait to pave, so the timing is such that it really aligns with the Broad Street route. And I think that's their preferred route, and ultimately it's now our preferred route because we're going to be paving Lake Street this year. The concern I have is, repair of the road once the lines are in place. We certainly going to ask for, milling and curb to curb. We want the sidewalks repaired and granite curbing replaced or installed where needed as part of the project. We also think that there'll be a little bit of an impact. We're going to ask for help with a tiny, tiny little pocket park that will probably be disrupted on Broad Street. Many people don't know the park even exists. It's called Hoffman Park. I'm sure many of the Weymouth residents here don't even realize where that is. And just general cooperation. We've had discussions with Hingham Light and Power and with Eversource on some things we'd like to see happen at the rink that Mike focused on. There's been some pushback on that. We'd like some cooperation in addressing some parking situations over there while there's going to be the disturbances over there, and that's not fully resolved yet. We'd like to put a tariff on the power going through, if you guys are okay with that. No. And I have asked the question about Hull. I do find that interesting because I've heard different things, and Hingham says they're not part of this, but as I represented Hull for many years and lived in Hull, I know the power situation down there, and I know they're in need of some additional capacity. So I question that, and I would like to get a definitive word in the long run on what Hull's role ultimately will be in this process. And just talking about safety, that is something we are focused on, Mike. And I personally know someone that used to work for me that lost an arm climbing the high tension pole back there, adjacent to exactly where this station is going to go. So there is a lot of activity down there. We do have concerns about that. We want to make sure that safety is addressed in the installation of that. I want to echo the concerns that were put forward by the Back River watershed folks. That's been a concern in terms of what, and I'm no scientist, but what potential impacts to the herring run, running a transmission line under the herring run. So we want to ensure that from an environmental standpoint that is addressed, and that's up to the environmentalists and the engineers to come up with something in that. So that's all I got now, and if there's any questions for me, I'm here. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Would the company like to respond to any of that?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking if the company would like to respond. Thank you.
Sure.
No, we don't. We have no response this time.
Thank you. So is there somebody online? Hannah Santos. Is she still there?
I'm here. Hi, Hannah Santos, last name Santos. I live at 9 off Lake Street in Weymouth. So very close to the proposed alternate route. I'd like to thank you for the Back River Association for raising the concerns about the herring run. As a parent of a child in Pingree Elementary, who will still be there if your project starts in 2017, I'm concerned about the traffic impact at drop off and pickup. And if that has been considered in the construction schedule and negotiations with Weymouth about this happening. To the mayor, I'll say I'm glad that Lake Street is going to be paved because it is an absolute nightmare right now. But also as someone who lives very close to Lake Street, right behind Denley's, and deals with the traffic issues on a daily basis there. I still have no issues with it coming down Lake Street. I actually see Broad Street as being much worse in terms of getting around Weymouth and East Weymouth, even though I live directly off of Lake Street. And those are my comments. I don't really need any response from the company. I just make sure that you consider those things.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? And Mayor, would you like to speak again?
Yep. I wanted to make one point that I forgot. Ms. Santos jogged my memory relative to the Broad Street route and getting under the Herring Run. There's going to be significant disruption in Jackson Square with a redevelopment project, and also with replacement of what is actually called a bridge, but to me it's a culvert that runs under Jackson Square, approximately between the gas station and the Nico's parking lot where the Herring Run is, and it's a failing culvert. We're trying to work, and I don't know how much, I can't remember how much discussion we've had. It's our engineers talking, actually Jim McGrath is here from our engineering department that's been talking to their consultants, I believe. And I don't know how detailed it's been thus far, but I know they are talking about coordinating some of the engineering work that we could get their conduit under that culvert and try and align their schedule with ours. It looks like we may be running ahead of them. So we're trying to get possibly some kind of an advance to get that engineering and actual work completed under the culvert, because we're running ahead of them, if you follow what I'm saying. And that would minimize, obviously the disruption. And I don't think you want to go through the trouble of ripping up that congested area with the impacts that would bring, and then come back later and try to, tunnel a conduit underneath the new culvert. So that's something that we'd like to see, maybe as part of even the decision. I don't know if that can be done, but that would certainly minimize a lot of disruption. And I think it would probably save some costs too for ratepayers. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. One more online. Jill, would you please introduce yourself?
So you can hear me. I don't think you can see me yet.
We can hear you. Thank you.
You can?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you. Proceed.
Okay. Well, you have an incredibly
Would you please introduce yourself and
sure.
give your address? Thank you.
I'm Jill Falk. That's F as in Frank, ALK. I live at 68 Lake Street. I am a neighbor of Lou. And I've been at quite a few of these hearings before. I don't envy your position in undertaking this project. I've been in utility and power for 15 years, and what you're trying to do is extremely difficult. You're not going to make everyone happy, that's for sure. But I understand the necessity of getting power to all the people. Anyway, my questions or my statement has to do more with the fact of Lake Street versus Broad Street. Lake Street is a very narrow street. There aren't even sidewalks all the way through. You can just about get 2 cars down the road. Sometimes there's a little room for parking. Sometimes there isn't. A lot of people have their property, their building, their home right by the side of the street. And I did a lot of research about the EMFs. And although Mr. Long from the consulting company said they wouldn't impact people who lived on a street where the power was going through, the World Health Organization differs. Also, some projects, some research that was done by other utility companies would say the same thing. The other thing that is challenging about Lake Street is that one side of our road is Whitman Pond and Herring Run Brook. So when you go to Detour, there aren't a lot of places to go many of the time. We just went through National Grid replacing our gas lines, and that wasn't too bad because what they were doing, the lines and the digging was much narrower than what you're going to undertake. We were able to do it. Also, Lake Street is a very busy street, not quite the same as Broad, but when I go to cross the road to see a neighbor, I have to really watch out because there's lots of traffic and they go very fast. So it is a street that's used very often. And I guess I'd be glad to share those other studies about EMFs with the power company or whoever, if they send me their information, or I can bring it to the March 31st meeting. And I guess the only question I have is, has the fact that Lake Street is so narrow been taken into account? And the fact that there isn't a lot of roads on one side, there's not a lot of capacity for diverting traffic for detours. And that's it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. You may submit, I would suggest that you submit the studies that you mentioned as a comment, and those are due by April 14th. Would the company like to respond to Ms. Falk's question?
I guess just on, I think the question was with respect to traffic and the width of the roads. And we did look at the width of Lake Street and, as part of our analysis, we looked at potential traffic impacts on all the routes that we looked at. And there are traffic impacts on both Broad and Lake Street. But we did take that into consideration.
Mr. Long, would you like to respond to the portions of the question related to the EMF?
Certainly, I'd be curious to see the studies that were referred to in the comment. I oftentimes refer people to the WHO website for information on electric and magnetic fields. They've done very comprehensive reviews of the large body of health effects evidence. They weigh the entire body of evidence rather than focusing on individual studies, which is something that people often do. And I would also point you to the website where they have a conclusion from their reviews of the health effects literature, where they conclude the main conclusion from the WHO reviews is that EMF exposures below the limits recommended in the ICNIRP international guidelines, and ICNIRP stands for the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. I guess that sort of broke up the quote, but the quote is, the main conclusion from the WHO reviews is that EMF exposures below the limits recommended in the ICNIRP international guidelines do not appear to have any known consequences on health. And in the EMF assessment that the gradient did, we compared the modeled magnetic field levels from the underground transmission lines to the ICNIRP guidelines, and they are well below the health-based ICNIRP guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Long. We have another question from the audience. And I would like to make this the last one. Is that okay? Or are there any other people? We're getting close to 8:30. I see Ms. D'Angelo, and we can do that as well.
Thank you. My name is Ted Matthews. It's Matthews, and I live at 102 Hersey Street in Hingham. So I'm a Hingham ratepayer. And I think tonight I heard from some very great questions from the people here in Weymouth. I'm surprised there's not more people here from Hingham. I'm glad to see Laura Burns here, our chairman of the Hingham Municipal Light Plant here. I use Broad Street every day. I drive to Needham. Broad Street and Lake Street are cut-throughs, okay, to get to Route 3, to avoid 3A and to avoid going down Main Street or to go to Derby Street. So it's incredibly busy. There are a lot of school buses on both routes. As a ratepayer, I think that, Broad Street is obviously the choice because of the cost to go down Lake Street. However, the inconvenience, I think, for the folks here in Weymouth, and I heard it more than once, the inconvenience of having the construction on Broad Street sort of outweighs the Lake, the Lake Street is a better alternative. I also wanted to mention, to start my discussion, was that 7 years ago, I was with the police chief of Hingham, and I understand the urgency of putting this new line in. So, one night, a sub-zero night, we had one line under construction. So there was only one line into Hingham on a night when it was below zero, and he was very concerned. So I see the urgency. I understand we need another line. And I'm a bit conflicted, Broad Street or Lake Street. I'd like to see the cost contained. But I think the inconvenience of using that route outweighs, the alternative. So that's it. Oh, and I also wanted to ask a question. Is there a traffic study available for Broad and Lake Street at this point?
Would the company please would like to respond to that?
There's not a traffic study. We've looked at available data on traffic counts, but whichever route we go, we'll have a full traffic management plan to address traffic during construction.
I see. Okay, so that won't play into the decision, the number of vehicles on either.
Yeah, we're using existing data.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. D'Angelo.
Thanks again. So in the interest of studies, I can send your group, I don't know, all of you, get a proper email to send some of these studies, some of the research that folks are talking about. I think this would just add one more to that information. You're looking for data. When I was speaking, I was referring to a February 2025 study that the Marine Environmental Research has done on electronic, magnetic, and advenomous fish spawning migration, an urgent call for knowledge. Again, it's another study, but this is all about the need for more energy, which we all understand. We all understand that fact. But I think that this study might also bring more light to some of where you're going to be doing this construction. And the other thing that I thought would be important is another very well-documented study called The Ecology of the Weymouth Back River. This report was initiated by the Back River Watershed Association and the town of Weymouth that collaborated on this important study. And it was conducted by the University of Massachusetts School of Marine Science and Technology. And it might bring some information that could be useful to this project. So I thought if I could email this information, what would be the correct email?
The email is in the notice, and that's probably the easiest way to access that.
In the notice, so just send it to that general email.
Yes, and I would look to the instructions regarding submitting comments, and there will be an email there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating this evening. To remind you, the comments and requests for participation are due Monday, April 14, 2025. We welcome your input and questions. The information is important in our review of a proposed project. Thank you for highlighting different issues tonight, offering to submit studies. If you have a question or questions relating to tonight's hearing, or want a clarification of the Siting Board's review of this matter, or anything else related to this hearing, you may email me at daniel.w.kelleher, KELEHER, at mass.gov. I'd like to thank everyone for their participation tonight and for the comments and questions that you have offered regarding the proposed project. Thank you. Good night. Off the record.